Well, good afternoon and welcome to another session for Coffee and Conversations at Odessa College. Today's theme is about teachers. Teachers can. That's the subject and the theme for today. Meeting the need, not only here in the Permian Basin, but across Texas and across the nation, as we know that there is a teacher shortage, but we are doing everything that we can to meet that important need. Teachers certainly can. Teachers Can is a statewide movement that's led by teachers and supported by more than 125 organizations and partnering businesses committed to elevating the teaching profession and honoring the critical role teachers play in the success of Texas. And I'm here with my colleague as well. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. My name is Charles Quintela. I'm the Director of Teacher Education Programs here at Odessa College, and I'll be fielding some of the questions that come across Facebook, and welcome everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Quintela. And my name is Purvis Evans, and I serve as the Dean of the School of Liberal Arts and Education here. We're so excited for our panelists here. We're going to hear from them. They're all educators in the fight to make sure that students receive the education that they need to be productive citizens in our society and be successful. So at this point, let's go ahead and introduce our panel and go forward. I did want to remind everyone that we are socially distanced and everyone has the option to wear a mask or not, but because we are socially distanced, we're choosing not to wear the masks right now, but we definitely do everything that we can to help mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus here on our campus. So let's get started.
Yes.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Almudena Aguirre Romero, and I teach here. I am a professor here. I teach English as a second language and Spanish. And I am also the master teacher, one of the master teachers here. So I have the privilege to work with other teachers.
My name is Kirsten Frazier. I'm a dual credit student at Odessa Collegiate Academy, and I'm doing the teaching program.
I'm Stephanie Sparks. I'm a student at Odessa College, obviously. I am also attending the Teaching in 3 program, and I am also the president of the Texas Classroom Teaching Association.
Good afternoon. My name is Charity Embley. I'm one of the associate professors here under the teacher education programs. I came to Odessa in 2019 right after I graduated from my PhD in curriculum and instruction from Texas Tech University.
I'm Cheryl Cunningham, and I represent ECISD and dual credit with Odessa College. I teach in the Teach and Train program through career and technical education.
And hello everyone. My name is Jonathan Fuentes. I serve as Vice President of Academic Partnerships here at Odessa College, and I've been in the teaching profession for a very long time, pretty much decades now.
That's awesome. So we have a large range of professionals on our panel here. Some are just starting in the teaching professions, and some have been been educators for a while. Could you all just share with us who inspired you to be a teacher and why?
Okay, I'll start. It would be my coach, Coach Tribble. I had her inside the classroom about almost 4 years, all the way to my 8th grade year to my senior year of high school. I met a lot of teachers, but she was the only teacher that actually put the time and effort to understand, what I go through on a day-to-day basis, and she made me believe that I could do anything that I wanted to be, and I just want to give back to kids that felt like me in school.
I come from a long line of educators, but I think my dad is my greatest role model. And one of the things he told me when I got my first job was, you have to be able to meet your parents before you need them to support you in a discipline situation, that if you already have that set up, you're going to get more support. And so I try to teach my high school kids that as they prepare to be teachers too, that there's a lot of parent involvement and it has to come from us.
I guess I remember back in elementary school, I had some teachers that were very inspirational. I thought that they did a great job in the classroom, and I loved how much they inspired me to become an even better student. And so I'd say there were just a handful of elementary teachers that really inspired me. And then when I had my first teaching experience back in college, I was hooked. I was teaching ESL and doing this at night while I was putting myself through college. And so from that point, I was hooked. I knew this is what I wanted to do. I love helping people find their way and helping people find the way to a better life, and I think education provides that.
Well, I can go next. Well, I didn't have so good experiences with teachers, so I have to say that precisely it was the opposite, like not having good teachers, thinking, I am not going to be that way. I want to be a good teacher. I mean, I'm not that way because, you know, in the system, I grew up in the system of, you know, a lot of, you know, exams and memorization and, you know, everything very strict. So I didn't want to be that way. And really, when I studied, I didn't want to be a teacher. My father was like, you have to be a teacher. You are, whatever you do, be teaching, because I love kids. But I don't want to be, but then I understand the hook part. I mean, life took me a little bit. I started private lessons and I was totally hooked. So and my father was like, you see, I told you. So yeah, I understand, yeah, it's a passion, but yeah, I was motivated by the opposite, but I really want to help. I can do it better. I want to be the helper, not the repressive, or so. Yeah, it's a.
I kind of agree with you with that, Almudena. I kind of was in that same situation. I had two English teachers who really inspired me, but I also had, in my senior year, I had a teacher who actually, where I was asking a question, and then she actually reprimanded me for asking a question. And I felt that at that moment, I said, well, I don't want to be that teacher. I want to be a teacher where my students are freely able to express themselves. So I had those experiences where I don't want to be that teacher. I want to be the opposite of that teacher who I had a bad experience with. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I think who inspired me was, well, mainly I've always liked kids, so I always wanted to go into a profession that deals with kids. But then when my mom went to go get her degree, I was like, you know what, that might be for me. Because like she was really hardworking and she really did it, and I liked that. So her experiences just pulled me in, and I really like that.
Awesome.
Wow, I love that. So you've all described some positive attributes about teaching that you saw in your own lives, as well as some unfavorable ones. Could you describe for those viewing what you would consider attributes of a good teacher to be?
Well, you definitely have to like people. You have to, and then have that purpose, you know, of serving, of helping, of communicating. Without that, I mean, there is no way. I ask my students in a journal, what is your favorite teacher, the first teacher that comes to your mind, and they all, I mean, 100% of students talk about that connection. I have never had a student that says, well, that biology teacher that knew everything. Is always that connection. That is that teacher that was with me after class, being sure that I understood. So definitely that connection is super important.
When I actually teach my class, that's one of the questions, and I ask my students, what are the qualities of a great teacher? And I always point out that I don't want to use the word great or good, but I want to use the word effective. And the reason is the way you actually convey your pedagogy to your students. So I would say that two things really that really comes to mind is the effective teacher actually would be able to convey the content effectively, and the second is you gotta have that empathetic and compassionate personality, like you said, a people person, because there's also the emotional aspect when it comes to teaching, and you're also dealing with a lot of adolescents, for instance. So I think for me, I would probably use the word effective as a way to say what are the attributes of an effective teacher, a good teacher.
And for me, I think it's twofold for me. I think the first one is someone with a servant's heart, someone who really wants to serve, because you're going to be pouring into other people and you're really helping them find their passion and helping them learn the material so that they can get to the next step of their life. And so that's really important, because I think that the pay is getting better and better in education, but that's not the reason why we do it, because there are more lucrative careers, but you do it because you care about people. And number two is inquisitiveness. I mean, you have to really, we're constantly tweaking our curriculum. We're constantly thinking, how can I do this better? And so it's the person that can figure out how to deliver the material, but then also be thinking, well, how is it going to be received? Is it going to be, you're thinking about the pedagogy behind it. And so it's somebody who is really inquisitive and constantly wants to get better and constantly wants to research to be that better teacher.
And I'm going to follow up with him because I think passion is the key word, and I think I've heard that twice. But and I try to instill that on at the high school level as these students are preparing to come out into the workforce, that you have to have the passion to make a difference, whether it be just there in your own little classroom or as they branch out into the classroom where they're meeting students already, because these students are already in classrooms and gaining that hands-on experience. And so if they need to have that passion about sharing, having that passion to communicate, and having that passion to share themselves and to make them an active part of that child's learning.
I'm gonna go with passion, not passion, patience, because growing up, I needed help through school, and no one took the time to, understand, what I go through. And you're always gonna have a barrier between your teachers and students of the lack of understanding. And as teachers, you just have to, make the effort, leadership to give to that student to build that trusted relationship, and the student will follow right next to you. As of Coach Tribble, when I first met her, I really didn't want anything to do with her. I didn't really like being told what to do, and she didn't really like being told no. And we built a really close relationship because she took the time and effort, and it's just patience. And someone that I didn't really like at the time ended up being someone I want to be when I grow up. So it's just really about that.
I would have to also say patience and kindness. You have to have a kind heart to deal with different types of students and different types of needs, and you also have to have patience to be able to actually deal with that and to be able to put that into a whole and help them and just mold them into who they should be.
That's passion gives you patience.
Yeah.
And gives you a lot. Yeah.
Wow, as you're talking, I'm thinking about many teachers who influenced my life. I think about Ms. Gordon, my first grade teacher, who was so animated and just a wonderful person. But the thing that I remember most about her is she made me feel really special. She took me to the book room and said, pick any book that you want over the weekend, really trying to instill reading in me as a first grader, acknowledging the gifts and the talents that I had. And that just really helped me with my further education. So thank you for sharing that. And speaking of feeling special, I know a couple of you have recently had an opportunity to be acknowledged by your peers. Dr. Educator Romero was named the Employee of the Year at Odessa College, and also Ms. Cheryl Cunningham was named the Teacher of the Year by Ector County ISD.
Secondary Teacher of the Year.
There's
two of us, yes,
okay.
there's two of us, one at the elementary level and the secondary level.
Well, congratulations on those honors and recognitions. I'm sure that made you feel really good. What would you say to those teachers who have worked very hard, especially during the time of pandemic, and sometimes may not feel that their work is being recognized? Not every time do we get the chance to hear what an impact has been made in the lives of a student or amongst our peers. What would you say to those teachers?
Well, I think you just need to let them know that they are an impact. You may not see it or hear it that day, but I've been around 40 years and it comes back, and you make impacts that you never thought, and kids that you thought hated you and that you thought would never ever want to say that they were in your class are the ones that become your biggest cheerleaders along the way, and some of those are in the teaching field here at Ector County ISD as well.
Exactly. I totally believe that, because I had one incident where one of my students actually approached me and said, and I didn't realize she was a teacher. She's one of my, I don't want to say bad students, but she was very challenging in my case. She actually became a teacher and told me the reason why she became a teacher was because of me. And I thought that was, I didn't realize that for more than anything, all the awards that you can get, probably the best award or the best thing you can ever receive is when someone tells you, I became a teacher because of you. So for me, that was very, very impactful. If I have to receive a certificate, a trophy, or anything, but a student telling me that, I think that's worth it. And yeah, because she was, that student was difficult. And she had learning disabilities. She didn't want me to help her or anything. But later on, I didn't realize that actually, I guess I did something good, to put it that way.
Absolutely.
You're
Yeah, I
stronger
have
than
a
you think
story
you are.
too. I mean, that as nice that is to get, of course, an award. But yeah, I agree. And I had a student, the first year, I mean, I was struggling too. And he told me, why I should study. I mean, I have my boss in the oil field makes 3 times what you make. And I said, well, does he look like that he's a happy person? He said, oh no, he's crabby all the time. Do I look like a happy person to you? Oh yes, you do. I said, well, there you go. So when I saw him graduating, I mean, I cried like next to the grandmother. I mean, we were both crying. I mean, that was so touching that, yeah, that is why this profession that is difficult, I am not going to say that you don't have days and classes that, but that is why it's wonderful. It's a wonderful profession. I mean, you really change lives. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. I want to ask Kirsten a question because you're one of our aspiring teachers on the panel. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience at OCA, at Odessa Collegiate Academy, and why you chose to start your career in teaching? There are a few programs that are offered, associate's degree programs, and you chose the teacher education program.
I think my experiences at Odessa Collegiate Academy are pretty good. I really like the school. It's very small, which is good for me, and there's no sports, which is also good for me. I think I went into the teaching field because finally junior year, they're like, you kind of have to figure it out. And I was like, you know what? Teaching. My mom's getting her degree. We're going to help each other out, and this is what I'm going to go for. So.
That's amazing. I feel like you're going to do a great job already. So. Well, we also have at Odessa College a new student chapter of the Texas Classroom Teachers Association and a new president of that particular chapter in our own Stephanie Sparks. Stephanie, could you tell us a bit about TCTA and what you've learned in that process and what you hope to accomplish through TCTA?
Well, I've learned a lot, and it's crazy how much information that I've received, and how exciting it is to learn the educational system. And I just want to give everything that I received, and all as everyone said here today, they've had bad experiences with teachers. So learning the right from what's right and what's wrong is definitely something that I've gotten from bad teachers, which I don't want to do. And then, learning all this, what is right, is giving to kids what should actually be done inside the classrooms.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I wanted to share a little bit of data. So the ING Foundation survey states that 98% of people say a teacher can change the course of a student's life, and 88% of people say a teacher has had a significant positive impact on their life. The ING Foundation survey also states that on average, teachers affect 3,000 plus students during their career. So given that information, why do you think there is a decrease in the number of newly certified teachers? According to TEA, since 2014, there's been a 27% decrease in the number of newly certified teachers.
Ooh, that's a challenging question. And we know that it's real, and we know that it's real here in the Permian Basin, that we're seeing vacancies that are going unfilled, and so we need more people to choose this career. I think part of it is that it is really challenging. It's not an easy career, but if you want a challenge and if you are inquisitive and you really want to have a career that is meaningful and impactful, education is for you. But I mean, I think we've also said it's challenging, but I look forward to that challenge every single day. I know that I'm going to wake up and there's going to be a new challenge in front of me, and that work is never going to be boring. And I love that about work. That's important to me. I need to feel like I'm challenged every day in the work that I do.
I think people don't learn everything out of a textbook. And so those new teachers coming in don't realize what exactly is going to happen when they walk into that classroom. And so I think the background that they bring in, if they've had a bad experience with a teacher and they have a conflict in the classroom, they decide this isn't for me. And it's not just a one-day situation. You're there every day. You're there for those students to make a difference. And your stability in that classroom and depending on them just like they depend on you, it's a full circle. And I don't think teachers learn that in a textbook. And that's why I really love the fact that my sophomores, juniors, and seniors are in a classroom weekly so that they can begin to realize that it is a different day every day. And those kids are expecting them to be there and expect them to be an active part of their lives. And that's what teachers lose out of the textbook, and we don't prepare them well enough for that first year. And I think you'll see that through research is after that first year, they don't come back. And it's that second year that's great, and that third year is even better, and 40 years down the road, I'm still here.
And I want to touch on that because I think that is a really important point, that teachers are discouraged after that first year. And I have to tell people all the time, don't let that first year be the gauge of how good you are in the classroom. Because that first year, you're making lesson plans, you're dealing with classroom management. All of these things are new to you, and that first year is a real challenge. And so I think that our student teachers also see that and they're like, I can't do this. Give yourself some grace and realize that just get through that first year, just like get through COVID. These are the most challenging years, but the good years will come because you're gonna figure it out. We all get better as we gain experience, and I want teachers to know that. But I think that is one of the challenges that we have in the profession, that they gauge it by their first year when they really need to keep going.
I also think that just talking with my students, you know, in our program, we require our students to have 16 hours of fieldwork experience wherein they actually go to different schools, and there's a process they have to follow, like background checks, trainings, just like an employee of a district. So they go to schools and actually observe in the classrooms, and I tell my students, observe different classrooms, see how teachers deal with classroom management. How do they handle students with special needs? What are your reflections? And I think that it's very important to have that conversation in the classroom, because some students, when I read their protocols, we call it our observation protocols, I would read, they would say, I observed this teacher, I probably wouldn't do that. I would probably handle it differently. And I think based on those conversations with our students, we are preparing them. And because if they're not prepared and they're pretty much, you know, we have a saying, you sink or swim. Simple as that. They just throw you in the water, this is what you need. So here in Odessa College, we try our best to teach them what are the standards. Because like in my experience, I tell my students, nobody taught me about the TEKS or the standards. So here I am teaching you all these things because I want you to be prepared on your first year so you don't sink. And they just throw you in the bus and say, here, teach this, because that's what happened to me. Gave me a folder and said, teach this. And I look at it and say, well, I don't know how to teach how, because you know, based on training, you have to learn how to teach the TEKS by the verbs. And that's what, if you go to the TA website, I tell them this is how you do this is how you teach. And based on that, we apply those knowledge in the classroom through our mini teaching demos. So at the very end of our module, we make sure that our students, like Stephanie, get to experience that 20 minutes of doing a teaching demo. And I think that will be their first experience ever to be in front of a classroom and actually teach. And like I said, there might be a decrease because some students are just not prepared. They're taught to just sink, and then later on realize like, well, I'm not prepared, this is not for me, it's too difficult. So their tendency is just, leave the field and just find another job. And I've seen that happen when I work as a K-12, where I have very young teachers or just fresh out of college. I've seen teachers get their first walk out of the classroom because they're not able to handle students. They're not prepared for the emotional aspect of teaching. And I think we're doing something great if we could prepare students that way.
That's why the support to teachers is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So important because you are talking about students that are in education, but imagine the math teachers, the history teachers, that they know their content, but then they haven't even had that preparation. And now with all the challenges online, and we need a big support, strong support, not only for the students, but also for the teachers. Mm-hmm. The teacher is like the mother in a home. If the mother is not right, don't feel supported, boy, nothing works well. So the teacher has to be supported.
Yeah, and also teaching is very technical. And some people might not realize that we have the standards. We have to learn the standards. Mm-hmm. We have to know these things. How did these policies came about? What's high stakes accountability and things like that? I tell my students, explain to them, because I want you to be able to prepare yourself and know how to deal with that. So I think that's the important aspect of teaching, is that it's not just you stand in front and teach, but you teach them those technical aspects. What is pedagogy? What's new? What kind of generation are we facing, and things like that. So a lot of that is really needs to be incorporated in our coursework, so students come out prepared once they get out of the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And with that, as we look at the Permian Basin, what are some specific things that the Permian Basin is doing at Odessa College, at Ector County ISD, and some of our other partners in the region to grow our own, so to speak, our own aspiring teachers?
Ector County has just started this year. We've been building for the last 4 years, but we finally have enough students now to really kick off Future Teachers of Odessa. They can join the program at 9th grade, make that selection as an 8th grader, and they begin getting college classes that go off the OC and UTPB education transcript as a 9th grader. And if they stick the program out and go through the full pathway, the district will pay for 78 college hours off of those 2 transcripts, preparing them to become teachers and working here in Ector County ISD.
Wow, that's amazing. Mm-hmm.
We also have the OC to UTPB Teaching in 3 program, and I know that y'all have taken part in it both as an instructor and as students. But that program is trying to grow our own here and trying to get them into the classroom as quickly as possible. And so that's the partnership between Odessa College and UT Permian Basin, where we're teaching those students on our campus here at Odessa College, trying to get them through in 3 years so that they can then enter the classroom. In addition to that, we have grow our own initiatives taking root really across the Permian Basin. So Andrews ISD, we have a partnership with them and also with Sul Ross State University to grow teachers in Andrews, and Pecos, Barstow Toya ISD, and Monahans, Wickett Pyote ISD also have programs where they're sending students to us and helping them become teachers. So they're really trying to grow their own right where they are.
Wonderful.
I understand that we're also connected with the West Texas Rural Partnerships. And if you could tell us a little bit about that and the need for a West Texas Rural Partnership to grow our own in our rural communities.
Right. Well, and I know you, Dean Evans, and also Mr. Quintela have really taken part in that partnership, but it's led out of Texas Tech, and it really is working with all of the neighboring school districts here in the Permian Basin to grow our own, and realizing that the rural areas need a lot of help and need a network to make this move forward, because we're struggling to find the teachers to take all of the vacancies. And so I know that partnership is going to pay off dividends, and we're very grateful here at Odessa College just to be a part of it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of pride and a lot of great things coming out of our rural ISDs and schools in our rural areas. I grew up in a rural area and stayed at the same ISD from kindergarten through 12th grade, and the memories, the support, the uplift that I experienced as a student was just tremendous. So we would love for people to be a part of that type of experience as a teacher. So how does one, if I was an 8th grader, a 9th grader, or even an adult who's interested in changing professions and getting into teaching, what are the requirements to become a teacher in the state of Texas?
You have to have a bachelor's degree. That can come from, the way I started, I went through Odessa College. I'm born and raised here. Went to Odessa College and then went to Texas Tech. And then came back home and have taught here in Ector County. But you have to have a bachelor's degree. You have to be highly qualified. You have to have an area of specialization. And so you go off of what your talents are. But the best place to start is, if that's what you want to do and you know that you have a passion and the love in your heart to share with others, you need to see your counselor either at your high school or at a college near you, and get yourself on your degree plan and just start nibbling away. If you can't go full-time, I encourage my high school students when they leave, I know that y'all have to get jobs. I know that you're going to have to find a way to support yourself, but you can take one course a semester, and I've had staff that have taken 10 years to get their college degree because it's been one course along the way. Just don't stop, and you can reach that goal.
And then there are traditional educator preparation programs, and the Teaching in 3 program is certainly one of those where you're going to become a teacher at the end and you're going to sit for the exam and you have all the coursework necessary, but you can also go through alternative certification. And so for those that already have that bachelor degree who want to enter the classroom, that you can go through that alternative certification program, and what it's going to entail is taking the test, the certification test, making sure that you pass that, and then working through the coursework, usually set up in modules through an alternative certification program in order to then become a teacher. So that certification is really important to entering the profession.
Great. So it sounds like one who's interested in teaching could really finish that between 3 to 5 years, depending on what program.
Oh, absolutely.
Without a doubt.
And our little students who are now 9th graders and are starting, they're going to finish 2 years when they get out of high school. And so building those programs, I mean, we're going to have young teachers in the classroom, and that's amazing because they bring so much energy and enthusiasm. So that will be sparking the teaching industry.
I'm so excited about that.
And what's so great is if you already have that bachelor degree, I mean, it can be even sooner than that. And so if you have that bachelor degree and have been thinking about teaching, come talk to us. We can certainly walk you through that pathway, but we know that the ISDs can too, because we need you in the classroom. So join us.
Thank you. So we have a couple of questions from our viewers. What is the biggest area of need in teaching?
So I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. So I worked at an ISD, and there we were constantly hiring teachers. At one point, it was a lot of math and science. And I think we started doing really well to incentivize that, and we were finding that we were able to then fill those spots for math and science. These days, I think we're finding that the special education is a very hard field to hire for, and so we're seeing a lot more vacancies in that area. I think that we're also seeing some vacancies in
I think bilingual too.
Bilingual is what I was thinking. Bilingual education is a big critical need, and we're having trouble filling those needs. And I know there are a few others if you're familiar with them.
Well, based on the information we went over yesterday, We were looking at targeted areas of career areas in this area, and one of the biggest needs was EC through 6 elementary. So secondary was a little bit further down, but without a doubt, the EC through 6. If you guys want to get on to that pathway, that would be excellent for us.
And just so that everybody knows, that Teaching in 3 pathway is an EC through 6 pathway. So we're setting you up to be an early childhood through 6th grade teacher. And you're right, both on our Permian Basin, on our Workforce Development Board, we actually know that secondary teachers and elementary teachers are both there. And so we have just shortages, I think, across the board.
And also, when we look at demographics of teachers, would you say that there is a missing demographic when we're wanting to balance the demographics of what our teachers look like in our region?
I think that's also one question that has come to my mind. Most of our students, our demographics are pretty balanced between the Hispanic population and the Caucasian population. We do need to encourage more African American participation. We rarely see them. Also, we also encourage male students. Let's say in one class alone, I would probably have 2. Mostly it's very female. We also have our non-traditional students who are coming back for a second career. And for instance, we have had some male students who are working in the oil field who actually work maybe as a teenager and then decided after 20 years come back to the teaching field. And it's very nice to hear their stories. They're coming back to actually realizing that they love to teach. So we wanted to balance more of our male students coming to the field. At the same time, we also want to encourage some of our African American demographics to actually join us and become teachers. And we see that there's very, very few, and it's also very rare. So that is just based on my experience with most of my students in all my classes.
And I think those are some of the national trends, even here in the Permian Basin. We have a very large Latino population across many of the ISDs, and I've seen some of the statistics with the ISDs and some of these certification programs, and we're not finding enough Latinos that are going into the profession. So what we're hiring may not be mirroring exactly what the demographic shows amongst the students. And we know that in the education research, it says that having those role models and those mentors of teachers that may look like me is really important to the success in education and to helping them be college going themselves. And so yes, we need more. We just need more in general of everyone coming into the profession.
Yes, I agree. And what is the income like? We know in 2019, Texas lawmakers mandated raises for teachers in an $11.6 billion overhaul of public school finance. So there has been a raise in what teachers make, and especially in our region as well. Is it a lucrative profession? Or what are the benefits? If it's not always financial, what are some of the other fringe benefits?
I know there's a lot of fringe benefits. I'm not going to retire at 55. I'm already 63. So I'm still in the profession. But helping others reach their goals and getting them to complete an education coming from the high school level, getting them into college, and once they taste college and know they can succeed, they're going to finish. And so those types of benefits, when they come back and say, thank you for getting me started, I found out I could make it and look where I am today, those are the big factors, and it's way more than money. And so teaching's always not been for the one who was going to get rich quick, but it's what comes along after all those years that makes the big difference.
I've also talked to some of my students. So one of my questions in my module actually is, why did you become a teacher? And some of my students who come back as a second career would always say, because I need some more stability in my job. They see teaching as more of a stable career in sense of benefits, pension, medical, health benefits, and so on. So they kind of see it that way. I mean, yeah, I agree. You don't get rich being a teacher. Like I can just remember, I always tell my students, it really depends on how big the district is. If you're in a bigger district, of course, the standard for early career teachers are always a little higher, but it really depends where you work. So I explained that to them, and it also is commensurate to your education. As you finish your bachelor's, you get your master's, I believe that you also get a pay raise as you get your degree up. So I always tell them that. That's just based also of my experience. Once I got my master's, I also had a pay increase on that year and so on.
And I think the pay has gone up for K-12 teachers. It's really impressive what we're starting to be able to do. And so I'm really proud of that work, because it's starting to look more like that median income, and it's for a first-year teacher that many of the districts in the area are now in the 50s range. And when you compare it to some of the other careers that we've often thought, oh, it's good to become a nurse, or it's good to become, Y or Z, that teachers' pay it's starting to look like their pay too, and I'm very grateful for that, because I hope that that'll start pulling in people into the profession. So that starting pay is looking better and better for our teachers.
Great, great. Well, one thing before we get ready to close, if there is one thing that you could say to an aspiring teacher, just a closing remark, what would you say? Just each one leave a closing remark, and then we'll get ready to wrap up.
Well, I would say to people that are thinking of being a teacher, I mean, if you are a student, be a tutor. I mean, get the thing. There are a lot of students that they didn't think of being a teacher, and well, I start tutoring, and as we say, it's like a bug that, if you are really, you have that passion, do that. I mean, try. If you are those mothers that ask me, well, what about being a teacher? Well, volunteer at your kids' school, get the idea, get if you like. I mean, and some of them tell me, well, you know what, I did that, and I love it. I love the environment. I love so, try being a volunteer and see if you like. But this is a wonderful, it's a wonderful, I mean, I have been almost like you, like 33 or 35 years teaching. I wouldn't change, I mean, for any other thing. I mean, I have had so much, yeah, we are not rich in money, but we have so much experience and so much, we have, touched so many lives. So, yeah, try. But, if you are because of the money or because of the vacation, don't even think about it. Try and think of that. Think of the big, big forest instead of just the tree, just one day that is hard. See, the how beautiful it is. To be that change, So what would you say to?
I think I'd give the advice of just keep going. It's going to be hard. It's definitely going to be hard, but I think if you just keep going and you keep working at it, then it'll really come back as good karma, and you'll just really find, You'll really just kind of get that payment instead of the money. You'll just get a better heart.
Just as she said, volunteer, kind of get the idea of, the environment. I'm very grateful that Odessa College has given me the opportunity to, get inside the classroom, see how teachers teach, how the kids react, and, just get into that mindset. And like she said, it's going to be rough, but it will be worth it in the end.
My advice is please don't give up. I always tell that to my students. This is my 23rd year of teaching, and I thought I was going to retire in 20 years. Apparently, I was wrong. I still got a few years. And also another thing is find a good mentor. I have a very good mentor. He was my principal, Mr. Ruiz. He really taught me how to be patient. he taught me how to deal with students, and I was a very young teacher, so I didn't know much, but I grew because he, every time I would talk to him, he would say, Miss Emily, do this, Miss Emily, this, that, don't back down. Show your students that you're not giving up. And I think that was good advice. And I would like to pass it on to everybody. And please don't give up. Just hang on.
Oh, and I have to agree with that too. And I have to tell my students today that they are very powerful as a teacher and make a strong impact on the lives that they touch, and they're already role models, and that their interaction in that classroom can make or break even a 4-year-old in pre-K or a graduating senior to be a success. And that impact makes a huge difference, and that's the reason they should stay in education.
I love that. And I think for those that are aspiring to be teachers or those that are teachers, there is no nobler career, I think, than being a teacher. I mean, we impact lives every single day. We are in the service of others every single day. And it really is an honor to do this work. And so I want them to not give up the way you said and keep going, because they're going to find a career that will reward them for the rest of their lives. And I'm very grateful that I'm in education for that reason.
And I also wanted to add one thing. There are many faces, in teaching. So maybe special education or little kids or adults or there are so many areas that you can be of service. So maybe you are not a good teacher for little kids, but don't give up and see it from other point of view.
Such excellent points. I'm inspired myself. I'm glad I'm already in education, or I would be running to find out what I can do to get involved. Thank you so much for everything that you do on a daily basis, and everything that you want to do to impact the lives of someone else. And thank you for sharing so candidly with us today. If you are a student at ECISD and you heard about the Future Teachers of Odessa opportunity, you can reach out to your counselor, or if you're a parent of a student who might be interested in that, reach out to the counselor about that information. If you're interested in joining the teaching profession and you don't know which route to take, you can reach out to Odessa College and we'd be happy to help you. Odessa.edu is our website. Our number is 432-335-6400, and you can also email recruitment@odessa.edu to find out more about the opportunities at Odessa College and in the surrounding areas for teachers. I'd like to leave everyone with a statement from #TeachersCan from that movement, and that statement is, they say that those who can't teach, and they're right. Those who can't ignore a child's burning curiosity about the world. Those who can't allow a single kid to quietly slip through the cracks. Those who can't let children be bullied into feeling that they're worthless. Those who can't allow the great works of literature to collect dust. Those who can't leave history in the past. Those who can't sit idly by when there's a calling to do something that's much more than a job. Those who can't let Texas fall behind. Those who can't teach. Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.